Sahana bhavatu, sahanau bhurtu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditam astu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily argue with each other. Peace, peace, peace beyond all. Om Shri Rama Rama Ramiti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tatulyam Rama Nama Varanane. We delight in the beautiful name of Sri Ram again and again, for even once we remember them. The name of this Sri Ram bestows a fruit equal to 1,000 names of that all-pervading one that we call Vishnu. So we are going to pick up the story once more of Ram, and because we have had a few gaps in our study, we need to once more just recall where we left off. You recall that Hanuman was captured by the forces and the soldiers of King Ravana. We call these the Rakshasas. And Hanuman allows himself to be caught, allows himself to be bound, because he's also on a mission to get all information of all the forces and so on. And he has created havoc. And so they managed to catch him. And the one thing that he observes is something very interesting. In the last century, even in this century, we have witnessed great, great powers all over the world. In Africa, for example, in the last century, we witnessed the great power and pomp and ceremony in, I think it was one of the African republics, which has the largest church in the world, bigger than St. Peter's, and all empty and all very expensive. We witnessed money being spent by dictators in what was formerly the Congo. We witnessed great, great power in the last century from great, great dictators, Ceausescu, for example, and also Mussolini and so on, all these great powers. And when you see how much luxury they live in my own Zimbabwe, we also see this, then naturally we come to a conclusion. The power began well and with high ideals. Same thing with Ravana. He managed to use his military might to get boons, gifts, which made him extremely powerful, extremely wealthy. Nothing wrong with that, provided power is used in the right way. Today, in the 21st century, if people who are potentially capable of wielding power do not have the right ethics, the right morals, are not steered for the good of humanity, for the good of everyone, we will see all the pomp and ceremony and richness and society thriving as a result, no doubt, but still something is lacking. Hanuman saw all of this in the great palace. He sees that the Ravana is clad in golden silk. He has a royal crown on his head beset with jewels. They all shone brilliantly. We saw that this figure Ravana was sitting in dazzling splendor. And the whole court also was shining brilliantly with gold and gems and pearls and silk. And Ravana's dark body lit up the marks of royalty. It looked like a great radiant hill. This is how Valmiki will describe the scene. And so Hanuman naturally reflects on this. And he thinks that, full of anger, wonder, and pity, mixed, if only this great one, he thinks, hadn't swerved from the path of dharma, haven't swerved from the path of what is good, what is right, what is generous, what is not selfish, then if he had not deviated, not even Indra, the king of all the deities, could equal him. And what a form, what radiance, what strength. And trusting to the boon he had secured, he took to wicked ways and has lost his happiness and forfeited his greatness. What was the boon? That he could not be conquered. And humans were not even considered in this equation because they were too insignificant. And as Hanuman was lost in this reverie, in this thought, Ravana starts addressing his ministers, not him, his ministers. He says, find out from this wicked fellow who he is, which is interesting. This monkey is the evil one, and we are the good ones. A great distortion of when we justify our wrong actions and say that they're correct, they're right in some way or another. We can be convinced of that, but the truth is much, much more profound than that, and more complex than that too. So find out who he's come from, who he is, where he's come from, who sent him, why he sent it into Lanka, and I tell him to speak truthfully. Now, Dharma is replete with untruth. And he's now asking this, you speak truthfully. And so, as ordered by the king, Prahasta questions Hanuman. Don't be afraid, he says. He starts off like that. If you speak the truth, you'll escape punishment. Did Indra send you here because you're so powerful? Is that it? Or are you Kubera's servant? Whose orders are you carrying out? Speak the truth and save yourself. Why have you come here disguised like this? And take care that you hide nothing. There's a warning there and a threat. And so Hanuman is facing Ravana directly, and he says this. He says, well, here's the truth. Indra didn't send me. Kubera didn't send me. I am a Vanara. I came here to have a look at the Rakshasa king. All this is truthful. That was why I laid waste the garden. Don't forget, previous episodes, he lays waste to the garden and creates havoc. That's what lands him in the position of being arrested. He says, I did that. Otherwise, I couldn't get to the king's presence. I did it to get to the king's presence. Absolutely truthful. And because they attacked me and tried to kill me, I killed them in self-defense. I've come here as a messenger, and I'm messengers from my king Sugriv. He is the Vanara king. And so I'm speaking to you from a king, a messenger of the king, to this king, the Rakshasa king. And I have to say that, O Rakshasa king, my lord looks on you as a brother, because he's a king, you're a king, and sends you his greetings. What a diplomacy. And Ramchandra, the famous son of King Dasharatha of Ayodhya, has become a friend of Sugriva, and he slayed Vali and has made Sugriva the king. So when Ramchandra, heir to the throne of Ayodhya, was living in the Dandaka forest to fulfill his father's word, his consort, who had been left alone for a while, was lost at the behest of Ram and Lakshmana, and Sugriva has sent his servant to look for her throughout the world. We can add, I believe you have her. I believe you know something about this. I came to Lanka on the search, and here I saw the good princess. So, O Lord of the Rakshasas, I'm speaking to you with the respect due from a messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. And then the messenger of a brother king. And I speak to you also as a devoted servant, also of the Prince of Ayodhya. This is a turning point. When he met Rama, it was a turning point. He immediately put himself as a servant. This is an attitude of devotion we can all adopt also. And when we provide service to a temple or to a holy person or to a holy institution. This is putting ourselves in the position of somebody serving the Lord of the universe himself. And so I think he says, you know very well that it was actually a cowardly act and totally contrary to Dharma just to carry off the Princess Sita. And this is sure to end in the destruction of your race if you persist in your wicked folly. A threat now coming out. So I'm just asking you, please restore Sita to the prince. Ask for his forgiveness. And you can then be sure that death that has come to you in the form of Sita won't happen. But, right now, as it stands now, this is how it's going to work. So don't mistake poison for food. It's not wisdom to oppose dharma and run into deadly danger. You know well enough that the sin of desiring another's wife will consume utterly all the merit you have earned through tapas and destroy you inevitably. We always think of the great rishis and saints of attaining their status through tapas. We always take it as religious discipline. But actually, tapas really is discipline that strengthens the will. Anybody who joins any armed forces will undergo severe discipline. And that discipline is there to strengthen the will and make one strong internally, psychologically strong, physically strong. And so, tapas in this case was undergone in order to get this divine will, or this great power, this universal potency. And so it is through this tapasya that you have got this. Now don't waste it, and please take your energy dedicated to dharma. This is not just a message to Ravana. This is a message to all of us. We have energy that is delivered free of charge. There's no meter that runs. We have to pay back. No bill that comes at the end of the month. Here's what you spent. Not at all. So how do we use this great, great divine power? Because all power, all energy is divine. We have to register it in this way. And are we doing something useful or something harmful to ourselves and others? And in any event, we have to be disciplined enough. We gain power when our will becomes strong and determined. We're able to mobilize all the forces of the universe by mere thought. We can say it mere thought, but thought is not really mere. It's the most powerful thing we have. Thought is a transformative energy because it is from the cosmic mind that everything else has come. And so this is what he's saying. Your only recourse, he says now, is to seek refuge at Rama's feet. He's talking to somebody who is thoroughly proud and egoistic. So don't make Rama your enemy and bring about your own destruction. The boons that you have secured will do you no good against the prince of the Raghu race. So consider well and realize the danger that you're in. Pay attention to the words of this humble messenger. It's not what I'm saying, I'm just relaying a message. And my messenger is from the Banura king, and turn to the right path and find safety. And these words from a brother king are true, and they're meant for your welfare. It's not against you. And Hanuman utters this bitter warning in a loud and clear voice so there can be no mistake. And when the Rakshasa king heard it, what do you think his reaction was? His eyes grew red with anger, and he orders Hanuman should be killed forthwith, breaking his promise. If you tell the truth, then we'll save you. Now he's told the truth. And anger puts aside all sense of honor, all sense of honor and honorability and truth and goodness and harmony. So this is the reaction. anger creates a kind of madness. Anger has no rationale in it. So this anger now turns the whole tables over, and we would have suspected from the beginning that he would break his promise. He's only a messenger, but his words are upsetting. So Vibhishana now points out, this is his brother, who is honoring dharma, that it would be actually improper to kill a king's messenger or envoy, because according to the law of kings, it's not permitted on any account to kill envoys and messengers. There's a code of conduct which is there that everybody is expected to honor. So you could have him mutilated, whipped, branded, but you cannot kill him. This is Vibhishana's counsel. What's wrong, asks Ravana, in killing one who has sinned so greatly? And Vibhishananda, who's thinking more calmly, more rationally, and therefore responds in a polite way. He says, no matter how grievous his offense, it was done at the bidding of others. And so to leave his royal masters alone and to slave their instrument, a mere messenger, was what use or sense is there in it? So let's by all means look for ways of punishing anybody that sent him here. And they must be brought here and given due punishment. And if he is killed now, then what chance is there of our real enemies being brought here? He has to go back. If, on the other hand, he is sent back alive to them, they will come here and attack us. They'll receive proper punishment at your hands, isn't it? Let them come here. Your army is powerful. And what are they? We have no idea what these Vanas are like. They seem to be just crude monkeys. And we heard that Rama is, he may be a king, loyal lineage, and all the rest of it, but he's dressed like an ascetic. Where's his arms going to come from? And so Ravana calms down and agrees. All right, he says, a monkey's most cherished possession is his tail. So set fire to his tail and flog him soundly and turn him out. Give him a good sound thrashing. And so at these words of the Rakshasa king, his servants took Hanumana out. They wrapped his tail in rags of all kinds. His tail grew in size. And as it grew, they brought more and more oil rags and wrapped them round. They soaked the whole thing in oil and lit the match, set it ablaze, and it became like a flaming torch. And so, bound by ropes, with his tail ablaze, Hanumana is taken through the streets of Lanka. Here's a public exhibition. See, this is what happens if anybody angers the king. Here goes the thief, they'll say, that entered our city. And all the women and children you see when you start this, there's a frenzy starts. So the women and children, they're all jeering at him as he's taken around by the exalted Rakshasa, and to the accompaniment of pipes and drums through all the highways and byways of Lanka. And when we study history, if you want to humiliate somebody, this is the treatment people give. You take away all his dignity or her dignity, parade it through the streets, and everyone throws things at you and jeers and so on and so forth. But they don't know who they're dealing with. And in the Ashoka Varna, the Rakshasas tell Sita, see this monkey with whom you had secret talk? Do you know what has happened to him? Well, they've wrapped his tail in cloth, they've soaked it in oil, they've set fire to it, and his tail is ablaze, and they're taking him on a procession through the town. And they tell Sita the tale and laughed in scorn. And so she kindled a fire, that's her reaction, and offers a prayer to Agni, the deity of fire. O Agni, if there's any goodness in me, any purity in me, be cool to Hanuman, don't hurt him. Now, why would we light a fire? Because We see divinity in all these fundamental, amazing elements. Fire is the most brilliant discovery of man. And we know that maybe for about 1 million years, man or man's relatives have been using fire. And you wonder how you take 2 sticks, rub them together, and this fire comes out. And fire, in a sense, is life giver, and connection is always seen. Fire, the sun, the lightning, the internal digestive fire that creates heat, 38 degrees more or less constantly for every human being. All these connections they saw. And fire, when you put offerings into it, the offerings are sent according to your intention. It's a kind of messenger, taking your prayers onward and upward. So therefore, this is why the Rig Veda gives prominence to Agni, and the first verses are all to worshipping Agni. And so this is done. We light the fire, we kindle it, and we treat the mouth of the fire as God's mouth and nicely pour offerings in it. This is the way. Our prayers will confidently be carried out when we do this. Anyway, Hanuman, on his part, he endures the blows and the insults that are heaped on him and proceeds from street to street, quietly observing everything and getting all the intelligence. And so the Rakshasas, just to amuse their women and children, they take it through all the streets and by lanes of the city, and he just notes in silence for future use all the secrets of that fortified city. In the meantime, of course, his tail is on fire. So even in the midst of discomfort and so on, we can turn the situation to our advantage. Now, what is this miracle, he thought? The rags soaked in oil burn brightly, but the fire doesn't hurt me because Sita had made the prayer. And it's cool on my tail, actually, the opposite effect. The elements themselves seem kind to one engaged on Rama's purpose. And the lesson for us is that in the midst of the most severe apparent crisis, we can maintain a coolness, because when our will is aligned to the divine will, then so-called adverse circumstances are neutralized completely. This we have to have faith in. So didn't the mountain rise above the sea and offer me hospitality, he thinks? And even so, the god of fire is gracious to me now and doesn't harm me. Or maybe Agni, being a friend of my father, Vayu, you see, is gentle with me. Now I think it should not let slip this opportunity, which has come to be unsought, to put the fear of God into these Rakshasas. Fire doesn't work without air. You need air for fire. In the yogic mudras, we see that this finger represents air and this one represents fire. And when you join the two together, then you have a symbol of enormous potency where everything can be transformed. Also a sign of perfection. So like that, perfection is when fire and air meet to produce radiation. Now suddenly, Hanuman shrinks in size and shakes off the ropes that bind him, and resuming his huge shape, jumps with his blazing tail to the top of the tall building. And we have to understand the philosophical symbolism of Hanuman is the mind. And so the mind can be very subtle. We can engage in the huge generality of the universe. In the language of modern science, it can explore the world of general relativity, where we find stars and galaxies and the earth and tables and chairs and computers and so on, and the world of quantum physics that run the computers. Very subtle, and we have no idea exactly what it is. It just runs on different rules. So the mind can expand as much as it likes and be as subtle as it likes. It has that capacity if we use it well. And so he plucks a pillar and there whirls it around, striking terror in all the beholders there. And because he's now gone small to take off the ropes, and the ropes that bind us require subtlety. Then once we've gained that, we can then become extremely powerful. So he plucks a pillar, he whirls it round, and he strikes terror in everyone who's witnessing this. And then he jumps from mansion to mansion, setting fire to them, not just houses, but glorious houses, houses of the rich. And in a little while, a strong breeze begins to blow because Vayu is there, the air is there, and the whole city was shortly in flames. And the Rakshasas and their women and children shouted in terror, and they ran this way and that way. And this monkey, they say, is no other than Yama, the great god of death and the afterlife. Some have said this. They were trying to work out, who is this? And no, he must be the god Agni himself. So when we set fire to him, he had mastery of the fire, and they all fled from their burning houses. And recalling the insults he had suffered, Hanuman was quite pleased when he saw the flames rise. He sat on the summit of the Trikuta hill and contemplates with satisfaction the red glow of the burning city. Then he went to the sea, and plunging in it, he puts out the fire in his tail and comes ashore. And then he regrets, alas, alas, what have I done? He then starts regretting. And his regret is not just regret, because he's grieving because there are victims. He says, I've lost my senses in my rage. Whenever the mind enters into this irrational reactions, even though it's satisfying for us, still we have to keep a cool head. What is the use of strength and skill and all other gifts if one can't control one's anger? Ravana got angry. Now he's falling into the same trap. So Sita too must have perished in this great conflagration. I've started this fire. Maybe Sita also is a victim of this. So my angry deed has led to the utter ruin of my whole purpose that I came here for. I've undermined my own purpose. So, regrettably, there's no fool, no sinner like me on earth, he regrets. The mind has to be humble, having, okay, anger has come out. This was wrong in the name of satisfaction. I didn't think properly. Now I'm regretting it. And now I have to be humble and admit it. And so, here and now, if my rage against the Rakshasas has ended in the death of Sita, then I would be so ashamed and so much grieving that I should put an end to my life and to my shame. And then he hears some voices in the sky, the Charanas, Yakshas, and they're all rejoicing and saying, what a miracle, glory to be Hanuman, to Hanuman's power, except the spot where Sita is, all Lanka is in all flames. He gets that assurance. And so hearing this ethereal conversation, Hanuman is greatly relieved. Sita has saved herself. She saved me, for it was her purity and power that kept the fire from harming me. Nothing to do with me. It is God's grace when these things turn out well. How can fire itself help paying homage to the goddess of chastity? What can fire do to fire? This fire that I started couldn't go near Sita. And is not all this Rama's purpose? And didn't the ocean king, Yanaka mountain, come to my help? Faith is restored. Now, this theme of fire is going to come up time and time again in connection with Sita. We have to remember this when it comes about. because fire represents purity. Fire is purifying. Certainly in countries or countries within the continent of Africa, one way of renewing the land is to set fire to the bush. Sometimes it happens naturally, and then fresh things grow. It's not the most economic thing to do, but it works. You get some new foliage. So, thinking in this way, Hanuman goes straight to Ashoka path again, and there under the super tree, he sees Sita, and Sita is greatly relieved to see him alive and cheerful. And so rejoicing, he bows before her and says, "Oh, mother, I have seen that you're safe. And so this is your power and my good fortune. Now, please give me permission to go." And Sita says, "Yes, you are in fact indeed a great hero, a Mahavira, and you have, and there's nothing impossible. So that my Lord comes here soon and lays low the Rakshasas and redeems me. I depend on you. You alone can achieve this. There is nothing impossible to the human mind. We have to assert that time and time again with great, great confidence. It has the capacity to transform anything because there's only the cosmic mind which is available to us. And thought is divine grace flowing. Use it well. So Hanumana says, "Please be assured, Sugriva will soon be here with Rama and Lakshmana, and the myriads of Vanaras, and Ravana and his wicked hordes will now perish. And the happy prince will return with you to Ayodhya. And so please don't grieve anymore. God bless you." And philosophically, when we see the symbolism of it, then we find the self united or with God, the Jiva uniting with the Atman. You can put it in any different way you like. So, consoling her now like this, Hanuman says goodbye to Sita, and he heads off to the shore and to the sea and climbs up the beautiful hill called Adishta, which has risen into the sky. It's a huge mountain. And on the way, he sees Minaka eagerly waiting him. And he affectionately strokes with his hand, but he doesn't stop. He flies straight like an arrow shot from a bow. And at the sight of the Mahendra hill, he knows that he is near the other shore. And so he gives out a victorious roar. Now the Vanaras, meanwhile, they see Hanuman flying towards them like a great eagle across the sky, and they shout, "He's come, he's come." And they rally everyone around. And so, of course, till now, their hearts had been full of care and their eyes wet with sorrow or potential, concern and worry. But now, of course, their mood changes. They jump with joy. And it's certain that he is returning in triumph, says Jambavan, the great general, or else he wouldn't roar in this manner. So they climb up trees and hills and stand watching with the approach of Hanuman returning from Lanka. And Hanuman rejoices to see the mountains and trees all covered with his friends. And amid their glad uproar, he lights on the Mahendra hill. And so we enter another chapter because they are beside themselves with joy. It's a joyous sight. And the Vanaras who had assembled on the Mahendra peak, the veteran Jambavan, he welcomes the son of Vayu, son of the air, with great affection and speaks on behalf of everyone. We're eager to hear a full account of your journey and its triumphant conclusion. And more particularly, we are anxious to know how you discovered Sita. How is she now? What is the state of her mind and body? Please tell us, dear son of Anjana. Tell us about Ravana's state. Tell us about his behavior. And once we've known everything, then we shall be in a good position to consider and decide what needs to be done next. We can plan. And so Hanuman tendered the mental salutations to Sita and begins his story. All actions begin with a small prayer, a small salutation. So he says, well, you know how I sprang into the sky from this very peak. And as I was flying over the sea, a golden mountain rose suddenly above the surface of the water. I thought it was something rising up to obstruct me. I gave it a flick with my tail. Now we, in case you forgot, have a retell of his adventure there. And so meekly receiving the blow, the mountain said in a sweet voice, my son, I'm not your enemy. I was saved by your father from the dire wrath of Indra, and I'm very grateful to him. So I now live in safety, and I'm sheltered by the sea. In olden days, we mountains had wings and flew there and there in the sky, and the world was in dread of us. And then Indra, to rid the whole world of this terror, relentlessly chased after us and cut off our wings. So it was from this common fate that your father rescued me. You are engaged in the most fatiguing task of flying across the sea, and I've come up here to offer you some rest. This is a good recap. So stay here for a while and then fulfill Rama's purpose. But you see, I declined the offer for lack of time, and taking leave of him, I went my way. And so in a proper sequence and without omission, Hanuman now recounts all that had happened during the passage and in the city of Lanka, and how he searched for Sita in vain in Ravana's palace, and how he found her at last in the Ashoka grove, and how Ravana sought and importuned her, and how he was spurned by her, and what dire threats he held out, and how the Rakshasas teased her mercilessly and drove her to think of putting an end to her own life, actually, and how it was at this juncture that he approached and gave her news of Rama and renewed her hope and her interest in life. And he recalls how, with tears in his own eyes, he tells them what a divinely precious soul Sita is and how nobly she has borne herself. And then he narrates how he destroys the park and kills the Rakshasa warriors, and how he was finally bound by Indrajit and produced before Ravana. And he also describes what took place at the interview, and how, as a punishment for his boldness of speech, they set fire to his tail, and furnishing him thereby with the great torch. And with that torch, he set the city ablaze. Even now, they're trying to put the fire out, I'm sure. Anyway, on such an occasion, when a character has to recapture all the past events, we can see that Valmiki's skill in telling the story or retelling it in beautiful words, how he can do it so well without boring us. Now, this is a source of special pleasure to those who read the Ramayana as a religious exercise, because it is loaded with spiritual clues and regarded as a sacred text. There's a controversy today about that a little bit. Anyway, people don't really like to repeat things, but it's one of the special charms of this great epic that is done and is interesting still. Now, those who wish to avert such calamity or desire success in some great undertaking, they usually make a parayana, that is some kind of devotional reading or exercise of the whole of this Sundara Kanda. And in reciting this, they are dealing with Hanuman's expedition to Lanka. It's believed that the same results also can be obtained even by parayana of only this chapter that we are reading now, where Hanuman relates to the Vanara warriors, everything that happened between his crossing and then recrossing the sea. Anyway, after this full, complete narration of all the happenings, he proceeds. See, our efforts have been successful so far because of the power of chastity of Sita, who is chastity incarnate. It's a great lesson. Purifying the body, purifying the mind gives us tremendous power. And when I think of her, I wonder how the Rakshasa could seize and carry her away. How is it possible? And yet escape being burnt to ashes. But Ravana too has accumulated great power through his own tapas. And even so, Sita could have reduced him to ashes if she had wanted. But she patiently endures all of this because she wants the punishment to proceed from her Lord. And she sees the more global scheme in this. And now, what is your advice? Shall we go straight to Lanka? Shall we just go there, destroy Ravana and the Rakshasa hordes, and recover Sita and restore her to Rama? It's not as if we haven't the strength to do this. We have. Single-handed, I can destroy them and leave not a trace behind. I've demonstrated what havoc I can make, how I can burn a whole city. So I can do it. And so can our Prince Angada, he also can do it. And so can Panasa or Nila or any of these. And so can Menda and Dvivida, the sons of Ashwini. Yes, there are many among us who can slay Ravana and the Rakshasa hordes. And indeed, I proclaimed aloud in Lanka, I, the messenger of Rama and the minister of Sugriva, am come to destroy you. But while you're talking, Videhi, the goddess of purity, is there under the Simsupa tree and in trouble, and closely guarded prisoners, pining with aching heart for rescue. So in her hour of despair, I showed myself to her and comforted her with the assurance of her Lord's speedy arrival. So that has to be done. Rama himself has to come and rescue her. So consider well when you're thinking about these things and decide well what now should be done. Now Angada listens to all of this very carefully and full of indignation jumps up saying, I can do it all alone. So that's a noble sentiment, loaded with egoism. And there are so many of us here, eager warriors, thirsting for battle. It would be improper after all these days to go to Rama empty-handed without Sita. So let's go straight to Lanka, destroy Ravana and the Rakshasa army and return to Kishkinda with Sita in our mind. And the problem with this plan is it's not a global plan. And when we allow the egoism in us to surface, we haven't really considered the vast implications. We need time to think about it a little bit. And Jambavan, the old and wise general, he utters a general protest. He sees it differently. He says, no, it's not right, dear prince, he said. We should report everything to Rama and Lakshmana and then do what they want. Rama's purpose should be then fulfilled in the manner that he wants. That alone is proper. And so all the Vanaras, including Hanumana and Angada, agree this is in fact the right course of action. And they then rose into the sky and flew towards Kishkinda. They alight near the protected park of the Vanara king, and they make their way into the forest area. And they drink honey and they eat fruit. Regardless of the warnings of the gods, they indulged in unrestrained revelry and ruined the beautiful park. A mix of things. Now, unable to stand the riotous behavior of the mirth makers, we see this example previously when Sugriva was made the king. Then the Dimukha, Sugriva's uncle and keeper of the royal parks, hurries to the king and complains. Your protected park has been laid waste because of this nature of carelessness, not understanding that the beauty of the parks versus the joy which is there. And what do we see in these modern times? We go to beautiful parks and we leave plastic everywhere. We have a good celebration, we're not worried. We put it into the seas, and that plastic goes in micro doses to fish, ruins the ecology, the planet, and so on and so forth. Pollutes the rivers, pollutes the air. All of this just nonchalantly done because we want to enjoy the environment, and by doing it, we spoil it. So anyway, we can see that in those ancient days, the same thing was happening. Anyway, the Vanaras that went south have returned. That's their joy. So this is the report. And alighting in the garden are behaving outrageously. They don't pay any attention to my words, and on the contrary, they've actually assaulted and insulted me, and drank up and ruined all the honeycombs, and plucked and ate fruit as they liked, and now, lying senseless as a result of their revelry, the trees and plants are all in ruins, and the king should forthwith inflict great severe punishments on these undisciplined Vanaras. Everywhere in history we find soldiers in their victory laying waste to land in their carelessness. We are no different in the 21st century. Sugriva understands the position at once, and he says, Lakshmana, it is clear that Hanuman, Jambavan, and Angada have succeeded in their search. That's the good news, and are celebrating their triumph in this manner. That's the bad news. And saying this, he returns to Dadimukha and says to him, send them all here at once. And Dadimukha now understands the real state of affairs and hastens to the Vanaras and conveys to them the king's command. Now we leave that story off here now. We're entering another chapter where the tidings are conveyed, the greetings are conveyed, and a briefing is made to Rama, and then we'll see what strategy is suitable. So we leave it there at this new chapter in the story of the Ramayana, which has great implications for our own moral living. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Great. Jai Shri Ramchandra Ki Jai. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji. This was beautiful.
Thank you, Swamiji.